All right. Um, uh, we're going to kick things off, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're super excited for our first, oh, I see an alum here from UCSD. Hey, John, how you doing, bud? So welcome to Wildwood Wednesdays. I'm Robin McGillis, and I'm one of the partners in Wildwood Running. Marie Markham is my partner who started Wildwood Running with me. And I've been the head coach. For those of you that don't know, I know a lot of familiar faces on here, but I've been the head coach, cross-country coach at Central Catholic for the last 8 years here in Portland, Oregon. And Marie is the assistant coach at Lincoln High School, and she's been there for 2 years. But we are both lifelong runners, and we competed at the youth level, both of us, through high school and collegiately, and a little post-collegiate as well. And we just feel, both of us feel really lucky to still be running and involved with this amazing community as coaches with a sport that has really meant so much to us. So a little bit about our vision for Wildwood before we launch in today's topic. So our vision of Wildwood was to create a space for coaches where we can come together to talk and learn about coaching the young female athlete. Both Marie and I had participated in a lot of really great, informative coaching clinics, but we thought after attending a lot of these clinics that there was space for another type of clinic that focused a little bit more on coaching the young female athlete, because we felt that there were a lot of topics central to the female athlete that could add more tools to our toolkit as coaches that we both wanted to learn. We have a larger clinic, for those of you that don't know, planned for August 7th and 8th. Originally, it was planned for June. We pushed it to August 7th and 8th here in Portland, Oregon, in the downtown area. We were hopeful that we'd be able to do it in person. That's still currently our plan, but we also have at this point a plan B. So whether we do it in person or over Zoom, we will be holding the clinic on those dates. You can go to our website. Marie's going to put that information in the chat. So you can go to our website for more information about the clinic, read more about the lineup of speakers at wildwoodrunning.com. And then just other ways to get information and to stay in the loop on what we're up to is to go to our Instagram page. And then you can also join our newsletter. We push out newsletters periodically to either share information we feel like is important, or to introduce a speaker that maybe was added, or to share some updates we might have on the clinic. We have 2 more sessions, 2 more mini Zoom sessions in May currently planned that are linked on our website. Kara Bazzi, that's on May 13th. She's with the Opal Clinic in Seattle, and she's going to be talking about athletic identity in athletes. That's a really timely topic that I think will be helpful for a lot of us right now. And then May 20th, we have Eric Detman, who is the head coach at Lincoln High School, and he's going to be talking here in Portland, Oregon. He's going to be talking about creating a long-term vision for a program. So each of these mini Zooms, this is a little longer intro, but each of these mini Zooms is meant to be kind of short and sweet, 10 to 15 minute on a certain topic, and then a Q&A to follow. A couple of ways for the Q&A for you to get your questions out. One is you could type it in the chat to the right. You can also raise your hand when we're done at the end of Marie's presentation. But then you can also follow up with us afterwards. Marie went ahead and put our emails in there. So you're definitely, we encourage you to reach out and ask more questions. And these mini Zooms are from the current lineup of presenters. We were excited to start sharing information, and we thought, what could we do since we're pushing the current event back? What could we do to start sharing that information? We thought, well, let's just do a little taste of what we're going to do and then if you're interested and want more information on the topic, you can come to the larger clinic and get more in depth into what you're hearing today. So thanks for joining. We're going to get started. So this first session features Marie Davis Markham. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Marie. Some of you may know her or have read it on our website, but I wanted to give you a little background and then talk about her topic, and then she will take it from there. So Marie has been a competitive runner since an early age, just like I have. She started running at the age of 8. Since then, she has quite a successful background as far as accolades and awards that she has won. She won 6 national junior Olympic titles, 6 state titles at Lincoln High School here in Portland, Oregon. She competed at 3 Foot Locker national championships and 2 world cross country championships, junior world cross country championships. In college at Oregon, she was a Duck, which I'm also a Duck, which is another connection between Marie and I, in addition to the coaching. In college, she was 6-time All-American at Oregon and finished her career with the Nike Farm Team. So she, in addition to her coaching experience, she has a really rich background of competitive running, which provides a lot of great in-depth look at, from a female perspective, going through those different levels of competition. She's currently the assistant coach at Lincoln High School. She's been there for 2 years, and she works with both the boys and the girls team, helps with workouts, and works on confidence building is really her forte and her main focus at Lincoln High School. And in 2017, when she joined the team, she just really saw that there was a need for female athletes to talk about some of the critical issues that they were dealing with while going through puberty. This is something that I've also seen on my team, but she really took what she saw as a need and developed a format for addressing that need. So she developed these sessions called Girls Talk, where the girls would come together and she would discuss relevant topics like body image, Red S, nutrition, confidence, and just to help build confidence and help these girls talk about those topics in a safe way, but also in a productive way. So in the presentation, she's going to talk about coming up with, talking about why we need these critical conversations right now for female athletes, potential topics that as coaches we might want to think about addressing. And then what we can do right now while we're in this, stay-at-home mode to start working on topics, setting those topics up. So when we're either in Zoom or back face-to-face, coaches can go out and have some of that work already done in the meantime. But so this will be kind of your starter kit to so to speak, for Girls Talk. So I think that is it. I'm going to let Marie take it from here.
Great, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm not sure I love Zoom formats, so hopefully this just goes great. I much rather see all of you face to face. I mean, I guess we are face to face, but in person to kind of read how you guys are doing and stuff. But for me, I think the best thing is if you do have any questions, just pop them in the chat and I'll answer them at the end. I'm going to share a couple slides. So if I might not be able to see the chat and stuff, and I think that's best for me. Like Robin said, I started out as a young runner. I was a tomboy all around, but I started running when I was 8. And I feel lucky that I had so many people in my corner who identified with me as Marie, not as a runner. They really supported me with who I was. And I feel like from a youth runner to a high school to collegiate to post-collegiate, I was pretty lucky that I had people in my corner who really believed in me. I had all male coaches. I was never coached by a female. There were definitely some female assistant coaches, but I was always coached by men. And I think that every coach I had looked at me as we were on a journey together, and never were they trying to maximize me at that moment in their time. And I think that that's the true essence of a great coach, is someone who can foster that love of running for yourself and kind of push you within the realm that you're in, and then kind of pass you off, as you travel on your journey. So I was really lucky in that regard. I stopped competing in 2004, and I've been running ever since, just for fun. But a couple years ago, I was in my 17th year of teaching second grade, and I decided to take to work part-time. I had 2 young children, and I thought this would be a great time to raise my kids, but also be a teacher. And at that time, I kind of started to get an itch to get back into the competitive running world again. So I reached out to my local high school, which is my alma mater, Lincoln High School. And at that time, the head coach was Eric Detman. He's also a Duck, so go Ducks. And I said, hey, would you need a volunteer coach? And we had a great conversation, and he said, yeah, I'm looking for a strong female. I'm looking for someone who can help these girls with their self-confidence, with their self-doubt, to help them believe in themselves. And I'm looking for someone who can also have conversations that maybe they're not as comfortable with talking to a male about, with their period and going through puberty and things like that. And right then I was sold. I was like, this is perfect for me. So I started volunteering 2 days a week, and now I'm there every day pretty much. But it was one of those things where I realized that I have kind of an avenue. I have this connection because I've been where these girls have been. I've gone through puberty. I've been a runner through many different journeys, and I was able to connect in that way. And so at that moment, I realized my goal was to help create strong girls in mind and body. And so right away, I just started connecting more with the girls and the boys, but I definitely coached both of them. And I realized my role was really going to be that avenue because Eric is already a fantastic coach. Like, he knows the X's and O's. He knows how to sign the buses up. He knows how to find the right meets, and he knows how to build relationships with kids. So I didn't need to step in and do those things that he was already great at. I needed to find my own role. And then pretty soon after, about 4 or 5 months after I started coaching, I attended Steen's Mountain Running Camp, which I had never done as a camper, sadly. And I had only been coaching for a couple months, and I went up with the Lincoln crew. And one day, Melody Fairchild, who was my old teammate at Oregon, was leading a girls only session. And in that session, she was talking about the stigma that distance runners often slow down or plateau for a bit while they hit puberty. And she was challenging the idea that if we're healthy females and we listen to our bodies, not only can we come out of it as stronger runners, but we can improve when our bodies are ready. And my girls were just thrown for a loop. They're like, what? Like, I just thought my path should just keep going at such an even rate. I didn't realize it was going to be so bumpy along the way. And they were like, this makes so much sense. And the conversation was much more than that, but they were just blown away, and they wanted to talk and talk and talk about it. And I realized at that moment that these were conversations that hadn't been happening. And I reflected back to my time as a runner, and I had never had these conversations either. No one had ever told me what my body was going through, or how I was adapting to it, or the challenges I was going to face. And so I decided we were going to start these sessions called Girls Talk. And most importantly, my girls were like, we need to bring this information back to the team. So I started thinking about what would be the purpose of this. Why do we need to have these girls talks? And I'm going to share with you a couple slides that I have. This is my share my screen. And I started digging for information. Let's see. I started digging for information, factual information on why we might need these girls talk. And the first thing is this first bullet point: girls like to talk. And I think we can giggle to that, right? We know girls can talk and talk and talk and talk, and sometimes they don't stop. But research shows that females speak an average of 20,000 words a day, where males speak 7,000 words a day. So girls on average are speaking 13,000 more words a day than boys. So they need to talk around topic a lot more than males do. The next couple stats all come from a CNN article. I think it was in 2018. Robin, maybe you can put that in the chat when we're done. But by the age of 14, girls are dropping out of sports twice the rate. Girls are dropping out of sports twice the rate of boys. And by age 17, after most girls have gone through puberty, more than half of the girls, 51%, will have quit sports. I think if you're looking at those ages, 14 and 17, there's something going on, right? And probably a big piece of that is them going through puberty. 89% of girls 16 to 24 said there is pressure to conform to the way a girl is supposed to feel and act. These are important conversations that girls need to be having, because if they're dealing with this at this point in their life, they're probably going to deal with it forever. 94% of women in C-suite played sports. So CEOs, CFOs, COOs, 52% of them at the university level. So it shows that a lot of those women in the C-suite probably have some sort of confidence and belief in themselves, some drive in themselves. So sports might have played a big part in that. The last thing that I think is a huge topic of conversation is among female high school athletes in aesthetic sports, 42% reported disordered eating. So in sports like running and swimming and gymnastics, 42% reported some of disordered eating. So when I saw those things, I realized, okay, this is really important. It's time for us to have these conversations. It's time for us to make sure that these conversations are being held. And I was really nervous to have them at first because they're big topics and they're big things that we need to discuss, but I feel like they're absolutely crucial. And I'm not going to be able to today to walk you through exactly how I do a girls talk, but I do want to talk with you about some things that you could think about now and some things that you could do between now and when we get back together with our girls, because I think those are things that can launch Girls Talk when we get back together. For us, it's really important that we come together as often as we can. It's usually in the off season when we meet, and our conversations are usually about an hour to an hour and a half. When I talk about these conversations, it's really important for them to know that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a physiologist, I'm just a mom, a teacher, a coach, a runner, and a female. But they're open to have these conversations. As we know, because girls like to talk, my goal is that they're talking 80% of the time, and I'm just listening. So I'm creating an avenue for them to have conversations. And my teacher background is really what's kind of supported that. Those of you who are teachers probably realize, when you want your students to have conversations, you really have to plan ahead. What are those essential questions going to be? And so those are some things that I've really worked on. In terms of conversations and topics that we have done, share my screen again. Where did that go? Here it is. These are kind of the topics that we have been able to discuss, and many of them more than one time. Puberty, they need to understand what's happening to their body. They need to understand that as boys are hitting puberty, they're being pumped full of testosterone, which is muscle mass, and females are being pumped full of estrogen, which is fat mass. They need to understand that their hips are widening. They need to understand that they're more prone to injuries and that their body's going to change. We've talked a lot about body image, understanding that your body is your vessel. You get to treat it how you want. Our menstrual cycle, understanding that our periods come and they need to come. Talking about amenorrhea and understanding that, hey, it's important for you, not just now, but in your future life, to be able to continually have a period. We talk about conversations where there could be two girls running 30 miles a week and one regularly gets her period and maybe the other doesn't, how our bodies handle things differently. Influences in our life, believe it or not, have been one of the biggest and best bangs for our buck. Who is a great influence in your life? Who is a hard influence in your life? How can you adapt that? How can you change? How can you navigate through that? Because you're always going to have those people in your life. So how can you make sure that you're doing what you can to surround yourself by the best influences? We've talked about confidence. We've developed confidence journals, mental toughness. These girls can learn from each other. One girl's mental toughness could be someone else's weakness, so they can talk about what they do. Recovery and bone health are really important. As we know, girls, probably boys too, girls compare themselves to each other. And especially when you're in that meat of the season where you're trying to figure out who's going to districts, you can only have 3 people go, and there's 5 that, are all doing a great job, 10 that are all doing a great job. So being able to reflect and look at your own journey. We've also talked about being great teammates. Great teammates make better runners. We know that, make better teams as well. Then as well as mental strength. I think mental toughness and mental strength are different, but they're very similar. Mental toughness, I think people can look at that as racing. Mental strength can be all the time, but it just depends how people view that. So those are kind of the topics that we have dealt with. I think puberty is absolutely the one that my girls are always asking to come back to. Can we talk about that more? Can you refresh us? Can you remind us? And when they're off on their own, they're talking about it themselves, I think, because it's become now just a normal conversation for us. The last thing I want to share, because I do want to keep this short, is kind of something that you could do now to set up girls' talks. I'm doing them every week on Zoom, and it's hard. It's really hard. Like, my girls even say it. They're like, it's not the same. We're not together. There's a lot more silence. It's quiet. People are distracted. And so we're just doing it more for the social piece of it. But I would say the best way to launch a girls' talk is when you can come back together and when you can be really intentional about it and have people together in a comfortable setting. I think between now and when you can gather together, the best bang for your buck would be to figure out, what does your team need? So to reflect on your team and the girls on your team, what do these females need? What do they need either as a team? What do you feel like maybe you're not giving them enough of? What do you think they would benefit the most from? And then from there, I would just start searching for articles, podcasts, books, videos, anything. I was just looking through my list. I have 8 pages of articles and podcasts that I've just saved. And some of them I'll never get to. Some of them will read over and over and over again. Some of them I don't know when I'm going to get to them, but every once in a while they'll say like, oh, I wish we could talk about this. And now I have this archive of just lists of things I can go to. I believe having some sort of resource that's not you and not them is the best way to start these conversations, because they don't have to feel as vulnerable. They can put their thinking on the article rather than on themselves. And so it takes away that fear of being, it's hard to be vulnerable when you're talking about these big topics. So my suggestion to you between now and getting back together how can you find these articles? The Women's Running magazine that just came out, Robin, you read that article. I've only read snippets of it. I'm at the coast and we only have a Safeway here and I can't find the magazine. But there's so many great places to find these articles and just keep saving them. Oh, there, Robin's showing it. Yeah, with Des on the front. So that's kind of all I have for you guys. If there's any questions, I know, Robin, there were a couple questions on Instagram or whatever, but if anyone has one, I would love to answer them.
Yeah, there are a few. There are a few from Instagram, but there's a few right here in the chat. Some really good ones. So the first one is from Steven and says, can a male coach effectively have this kind of group conversation with his female athletes? Which is an excellent question.
Great question. I think absolutely, no doubt about it. I think that anyone can have these conversations if they have the knowledge, if they have the background, if they have the heart, and if they can shut up and let the girls talk. A lot of it is just giving them the avenue to talk, right? I usually start with, here's a little bit of knowledge, here's an article, you guys go at it. I do think that a female, our head coach, Eric Detman, like I said, he usually was like, I just want them to be with you. I want them to have this time. And every once in a while, we'll move to other topics and he'll join us. And it's different. It's different having him in the room, not because he's a bad person. Like, they'll tell him everything. They will vent to him like no other. But I think there is a little bit of a difference between the male and female.
Good. So there are times when it's good to have a female present for certain topics, especially as you're starting out, right?
Yep.
The next question from Bernadette is, are these chats one-on-one or with groups? Are they scheduled or just come in the moment?
So they are in groups and they're totally optional. When we started probably with about 10 or 15 of our 50 girls. And we got up to probably about 30 of them. A lot of times they're held after practice, and at Lincoln, we don't have a parking lot, so our kids rely on the bus or their parents' work schedule. So they're definitely in groups. I tell them, even if you can only make it for 10 minutes, it's better than nothing, because usually that's the hook to get them to come back. And they're not in the moment. Bernadette, I know you're a teacher, I usually spend an hour or 2 for each lesson planning out exactly what I'm going to say, how it's going to go, where I want the journey to go, where I want the conversation to go. It doesn't always, but I have to have that end in sight so that when it gets off track, I have a way to kind of get it back on.
Yeah, and I think that having that plan is important, because especially if you're nervous about a topic or unsure, having the plan, if they ask this question that I'm scared of, how you're going to respond because you've sat down and planned it out. It's not, in the moment as much. The next one is from Elizabeth Dietrich. Do you do these talks mostly in the summer before cross-country season begins?
I usually do. I would say yes. Most of them in the summer. We'll do them at my house. A ton of them in the winter when we are on the days that we're not training, because we can do them right after school. So they might get a quick run in, or it might be a day off. Some of them are on the basketball team, so they can squeeze in before that. So the bulk of them are in the off season, especially the big meaty topics are in the off season. But during the season, there's those struggles when we're starting to get into like championships time and they're struggling. Then we'll pop one in really quick on a recovery day or something like that. But those are harder because, with different events, most of them are distance runners, but we still get kids from other events and like sprinters and the jumpers and the throwers. So it's hard to kind of navigate that.
Do the guys feel left out, or is there an equivalent for male athletes? This is from Melissa.
I don't know if the guys feel, I just don't think they have the need to talk, to be honest. Like, the girls can't wait to show up, talk, and eat snacks, right? So, I don't think so. I do think that me having these talks with the girls has created a bridge with my relationship with the boys. I think they see that I care. They see that I'm looking out for the girls' best interests first before they're running. And I think that they respect that. But I know during this time they're meeting with Coach Detman, and they're having conversations like this. I think that they don't miss it as much as maybe the girls would miss it.
Yeah. I skipped one. Do you involve parents in these conversations?
I don't. Parents are not in these conversations. They absolutely know they're happening. They know what the topic is. They know what we've discussed. Many parents come to me afterwards and are like, thank you for having these conversations. If a girl maybe has missed her period, her parents might come to me. Usually at that point, they have gone to their parents to say, hey, this is going on. I need to see a doctor or something like that. But usually it's just a conversation on the side. If there's something I'm really concerned about, I might talk to a parent as well, but that's usually a conversation Eric and I would have with involving the parents. We did talk about this season. Our goal was to have a girls and parent conversation to let parents know. Parents are the ones buying the food. Parents are the ones setting up the schedule. And oftentimes parents are the ones that are motivating their child in either a great way or a not so great way. So for them to understand what girls are going through is so crucial. And so that's the next step for us for sure.
Okay. From Addie, what are some of the best websites you found when looking for articles and topic resources?
I think Elizabeth Carey. I think she just has her own website. Is that right, Robin?
But she does a lot of writing, a lot of freelance writing.
She's writing for DieStat. She's writing for Podium Runner. I think she's fabulous. My favorite article to start with was an article written in the New York Times in 2018 about Caitlin Toohey and Melody Fairchild. And that's kind of what stemmed this for me, was that article. And then Elizabeth Carey wrote kind of a follow-up to it in September of that same year, also in the New York Times. Those two, placing them together, I think are really great ways to start.
Okay.
And you can, if you email me, I can send you the links to those if you can't find them.
Okay, great. Are there any, I think that was all. Oh, more in the chat, maybe. Let's see, one more.
Oh, Elizabeth's here. Yay.
Oh, is that?
Thank you.
She just put a link in there. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Awesome.
Yeah.
Are there questions from folks in the, let me close out of here. Oh, one new message. And one more article. The New York Times article. It's great.
Both of those,
yeah.
The first one that I think Elizabeth put in is the one that I read, for the one about Melody and Caitlin. Yep. And then the next one is the one that Elizabeth wrote.
Okay. And
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just wonder, have you run into any issues about speaking into something that, like, kind of like you said, you're not a medical professional, and I'm a coach at the collegiate level, and I'm looking at this as something that I think is still relevant at the collegiate level. I remember when I was a collegiate athlete, I was still probably going through that process of changing and not realizing, like my sophomore year when things were kind of different, that I was still probably in that process. So anyway, looking forward as a coach of having these conversations, I just worry about speaking into things that I don't have. Like, I'm not a nutritionist, so I shouldn't really speak a lot about nutrition, that kind of thing. So what would you say along those lines?
So that's been my biggest thing is I think probably in every talk I say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a psychologist, whatever it is. But I think they really get that it's coming from my heart, that I just want the best for them as a female. And so they know that lots of times they'll ask me questions and I'm like, I don't know that answer. Like, I had a girl ask me about, getting her period and being on birth control. And I was like, I have no idea, And so I was really scared to start these conversations for exactly that reason. I was afraid that I would get in a hole and I would say something wrong, or that I would just go about it wrong. And it took me a couple months to get this going because I was scared of that. But I realized in hindsight, the girls look at me and they're like, you care about us more as us than as runners. And so in the long run, I think it's made them closer to me, and it's made them more confident in that, like, I'm really there to support them as a person. And so I haven't had any issues in that regard, in terms of feeling like I'm saying something that I don't know, if that makes sense.
So looks like
I now, when I was going through puberty, I always give them an example of, like, sometime I was really successful and sometime I wasn't. So they've seen that I've failed and they've seen that I've succeed. And in that regard, I think it's helped. I don't know. I hope that answered your question.
Okay. We have one in the chat from John Walsh, former teammate of mine at UC San Diego. Do you find that there's an ideal number of girls in each conversation? We have a team of upwards of 50 plus girls at times, just in cross country. He's in Southern California.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. I think that it just depends on the girls. I've started some conversations where, they're supposed to talk, right? And I sit there for 2 minutes and no one says a word. And there might be 30 kids in the room. We usually, when we first started, we got our core varsity girls, and then a couple other girls, but now the range is different. We probably have about 50 girls and we get about 30, I would say, and on a cross country team. I don't think there's a right or wrong number. I mean, if you're going to get, I would say, a third of the girls who don't say a word, who are just going to sit and listen, maybe because they're the youngest or maybe because they're really quiet, but they're still going to get something out of it, even if they don't say anything. I just try and encourage, like, when someone takes a risk to talk, I just try and encourage them to continue talking without them feeling worried about it. Or I just condone them, or not condone, but give them, like, yes, you're doing a great job, keep going.
All right. Any other questions from the group? Mike Blackmore just shared in the chat that he does this with his group at the collegiate level.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. I think it can happen at any level. I think, the youth level is probably a little bit too young or whatever, but I think that, the cool thing about high school too is you have some girls who have not hit puberty yet, or in the beginning stages of it. And then you have some who have been going through puberty for years. And it was really cool to see some of our leaders who maybe weren't as vocal as a leader. Maybe they were be able to say, oh my gosh, that's what happened my sophomore year, or that's something I've been through. And the girls are able to say, okay. And I think a lot of people worry, are they going to be scared that this is going to happen to them? But I totally disagree. Like, none of them are scared. They're just like, it might happen to me, it might not, and it might, or puberty is going to happen to me, but how my body reacts to it might be the same as you, but it might be totally different. And so in that regard, I think they feel like they can embrace whatever comes their way.
Yeah. Let's see, we have a couple more questions. Carson, if these are optional after practice, how do you encourage girls to come out at the beginning?
So the great thing for me is the beginning was a group of girls at Steens who wanted this to happen. So even though I knew what the topics were going to be and I knew what I wanted the articles to be, we met at Starbucks and they felt part of it. So I think that's what you could do is the leaders of your team. Hey, what do you guys think about this? And bring them in, and you're still going to do all the planning, and you're still going to figure out where you want this to go. You're going to figure out which information you want is acceptable to present to them, but then they feel a part of it. And from there, I asked each of them to at least encourage one person they think would benefit from it. So then that brought in a couple more people. Snacks are huge. If you bring snacks, they will come. Like all of them will just eat them all up. And then the other thing is that, I lost my train of thought. I had something else. I lost it. Maybe it'll come back.
That was good. Snacks involving the leadership. I think that's excellent.
Yeah.
Mike, we have one more question, but first Mike, and I was actually going to go to Mike already because Mike Blackmore has a quick comment. And I think as a male coach, having had these conversations, it'd be great to hear from him, his perspective.
Thanks, Robin and Marie, for doing this. It's from a male perspective, the first couple conversations are kind of awkward, but I think they're important. And I think it really also helps a male coach let his female athletes know that he cares about them. And the easy way for me is I brought somebody else in first to talk, so they knew that this wasn't about me trying to put something on them to think about. It gave them a chance to just I actually started a conversation and I walked away from it and let them have a one-on-one with the two people I brought in. And following that conversation, I got a I got a text about 10 minutes later and said, this is an awesome thing. And this is really going to bring out, this is going to change the way that we bring up conversations. And I think it's going to be a really good thing for the future of our program.
Great. That's great. And you're at Linfield College, Linfield University.
Soon to be Linfield University.
Yes. Not everybody, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. It was great.
And I would add on to that, and I'm curious if you think the same thing, Mike, but it just feels like there's a new bridge for them to come to you and ask questions or just feel vulnerable, and to really understand their whole person, not just as a runner. And I feel like that's been huge for us.
I agree 100%. It changes the way that they feel comfortable talking to me about things that they may not want to talk about otherwise.
Yeah.
Great. So question, have you ever had a parent guardian that did not feel comfortable about this with their athlete, like participating?
Possibly, but no one has said anything to me. I mean, there are some girls who haven't come, or some girls who come every once in a while, but there has never been a parent who's said that they don't like it. Or
next question, do you feel the need to establish norms? This is from John Walsh again. A need to establish norms or guidelines at the start that what is said there stays there and such. So
I do. I think some conversations more so than others, but absolutely. I think norms are crucial. I think they're absolutely important, especially when you're talking about puberty and body image and menstrual cycle and those things, mental strength and toughness and how you're going to navigate a race. Maybe not as much, but if you want people to feel vulnerable. I also, when I created the norms, I felt like that helped them realize, whoa, okay, we're going to get deep. Like we're going to be vulnerable here. And if they're not vulnerable, what are they really getting out of it? Right. And so I felt like that kind of gave them a heads up, like, here we go.
Marie, you said that parents know these conversations are going on. How do you let the parents know?
So usually in our weekly newsletter, Eric will put in Girls Talk with Marie at 4:00 or whatever. So the first time we did one, I did a little blurb on what it was. And then from there, the girls, these are conversations the girls don't want to have with their parents. And so their parents are like, thank you. So they know that they're happening and they know what time they're happening and stuff like that. So that's how I let them know.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions from the group? You can chime in if you'd like now, or put it in comments. Some really good questions and good content, Marie. I think it's, from my perspective, I mean, just my own 2 cents. I'm having some of these conversations, but sometimes I take it for granted that I'm not doing these as purposeful enough. So I'm just having the one-off, but really taking the time to sit down and plan and walk through how those conversations are going to happen. And then with Marie's background as a teacher, I mean, I have luckily I have teachers that I'm not a teacher by training, but I have teachers on staff that I lean on. And this for me is kind of like, I need to lean on them more now, maybe to come up with a better plan, because that's where your value, you bringing these conversations to light. And I feel like as a coach, I haven't maybe done as good a job as I can with that.
Yeah, I think the planning piece is huge. I think as coaches, we want to give so much information and help them, but at this point, it's time to step back and let them talk about these topics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a link in our chat. This is to Girls Talk, so we have a link on our Wildwood running page, so you can, if you guys have more questions and you want to talk to Marie, she's a great resource. So I just encourage everybody to do that. And again, we're going to do these next couple Wednesdays and hopefully a couple in June. So please join us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe we'll see you in August.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thank you.
See. Have a good rest of your week, guys.
Thanks.